Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. This is In the Company of Charity podcast by the Daughters of Charity. I am your host, Sister Liz, and I'm here with my co-host, Sister Elizabeth. Hello, sister. How are you?
I'm doing well, Sister Liz. It's beautiful. Imagine this sunny day, 80 degrees in Utica. You know, we always start with a little weather report, but usually we're having a little doom and gloom, but it's quite beautiful. I went out for a long walk this morning, so it's a good day. Good day.
Well, I had to have my little exercise prior to the sunrise because it gets extremely hot down here during the day.
Well, you know, in our part of the world up in New York right now, it sunrises at 5:06 in the morning. Oh, wow. So just so you know, you'd have been up like 3:30 to get the coolness, but no, it stays cool all the time. But sunrise is at 5:20, I think it was this morning, because it's a weekend. Let us sleep a little bit longer, but 5:20, yeah.
Yeah, in this part of the world, the southern Texas, Rio Grande Valley, our sunrise is never earlier than about 6:30, ever.
Wow. Yeah. So, we range anywhere from like 5 in the morning in the early summer months, or late spring, early summer, to like 7:30 in the winter. So short days are really short, long days are really long.
Yeah. Amazing.
I know. Well, so there's the weather forecast and a little bit of geography and media. I always think because your dad is a meteorologist, right?
My dad loves the podcast.
And it's coming up on Father's Day soon. So yeah, I think it's just in honor of dads everywhere, but especially your dad, the meteorologist.
As the dads would say, it's not the heat, it's the humidity.
There you go.
Listen, we have a great show for everybody today. There is the most charming, loving, wonderful sister on this podcast, aside from us, Sister Honora Remes, and you all are really going to love this. And, you know, one of the things that strikes me about her is when she was talking about the way that we interact with the people that we serve, which helps us to know our own vulnerabilities and our own brokenness. And what a great explanation of that aspect of our spirituality of St. Vincent and St. Louise, where we are walking with people and impacted by their story. I thought that was really spectacular, her explanation of that.
Yeah, and it applies to any ministry, any people serving other people, just even our interactions with one another every day. As we touch the vulnerability of others, we recognize it within ourselves, and you know, it helps to kind of equalize the playing field in some ways. It helps us to be more empathetic, to be more sympathetic, more loving, all of those things that are good and wonderful, and really help us recognize God in the midst of ministry, in the midst of our service. Sister Honora works at St. Patrick's Center in St. Louis, and she does spiritual direction basically with mostly women, but with the homeless community there. And just as you said, I mean, you just can't find someone who is more, she just oozes love, this woman. I mean, I kept thinking the whole time, I'm saying, I'm glad I snagged this interview before you did, you know, because you just an hour or so of, you know, just some Sister Honora is all you need to get you through for about 6 months, you know. Yeah, so I was really, really excited to talk with her, and just to go to those special spiritual places that she goes, you know. She's a gem. She's a gift to the community. She's been a gift to so many sisters in their spiritual journey, and we're just so grateful for her leadership and for the gift that she gives each and every day. And you know, and on top of who she is to us as sisters, who she is to the poor that she serves, just amazing. I'd love to just sit back and watch her, you know, and just listen to her. So I really think everyone's going to enjoy this. They're just going to fall in love with this lady, and she is just, and she is that. You can tell. I mean, there's everything about her is just gentleness and goodness.
May each one of you listeners have a sister Honora in your life.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
really is stellar. As always, you all can email us at companyofcharity@gmail.com with your comments and questions. And, we're on Instagram. That's a thing. And so we're updating that weekly and sharing some good content. So go find us over there, Company of Charity Podcast on Instagram.
Hi, everyone. This is Sister Elizabeth, and I am in the company of Sister Honora Remes today. Sister Honora has been a friend of mine in community, and I know that she has been a friend to many, but she's going to talk to us today about her work at St. Patrick's Center in St. Louis. That's currently where she's living. And she has a really unique ministry there, one that's I don't think anyone else has. Sister Honora, you can tell us that. But so tell us, Sister Honora, what do you do during the day? What brought you to this kind of work?
Oh, Elizabeth, it's a long story. I always have been attracted to persons who are suffering from homelessness. And long time, I've been in the company about 63 years, I think. And when I first was able to visit with homeless persons, they were in jail. And that was a very specific kind of homelessness that I experienced there. But excuse me, when it eventually led me to being missioned to St. Louis, I was able not only to visit the jail, but also to be part of a very unique homeless place called St. Patrick's Center. It's a place of refuge and hope for many men and women experiencing homelessness and all the needs that come from being in insecure housing. So when I got missioned here, I heard one of our sisters was making salads down there. And so I thought, well, I ought to go and look. And when I got there, I realized this is the place my life has been waiting for, to do not just dinner, which is important, but some kind of spiritual awakening that will allow them to believe deeper in themselves, in the people that are around to help, and in the one who made them in the first place. So it's been 9 years there. And I have, in the meantime, made a special niche for the spiritual direction that goes on down there with the spiritual direction that I'm privileged to do for the community.
Yeah, so you are a spiritual director for some of our sisters, and you are our spiritual director for our annual 8-day retreat. So many sisters know you as a spiritual companion, for which we're all very, very grateful in the ways that you share your wisdom and your closeness with the Lord. And I would imagine working with sisters is one way in which you are a companion. But tell us a little bit about what how you find Christ, how this experience of the spiritual journey with those who are vulnerable, those who are unhoused, it's got to be different from the salad making. Although I know there's still components there, but that kind of hardcore, you know, direct service is different than this, I would imagine. So what can you tell us about the way in which you've seen some of the women that you work with be transformed? How does this spiritual direction work? And I know you want to tell us a little bit about the Ignatian spirituality program. So just tell us
Mhm.
about that experience of what is it like to be a spiritual companion to those who are struggling and who are very vulnerable?
Oh, Elizabeth, it is such a precious experience of interacting with women who are courageous enough to imagine that they can have a different future from sleeping around or being shunted from one shelter to the other. Really, my part is so puny, but it enters into a transformative care agency. So maybe I could just tell you a little bit about what happens each week when I do go down to St. Pat's.
Sure,
Is
I'd
that
love to
okay?
hear that. Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
absolutely. What's a day in the life? What does that
Right.
look like when you show up, and what
Okay.
happens during the day?
Well, first of all, um, you know, people aren't just, lining up to come to this group, you know. So you do a little warming up of whoever is around, and some of them say, oh, I'd love to, but I have a doctor's appointment, or I'd love to, I have to meet with my counselor, blah blah. But every now, these groups have gone from meeting with one person, which of course is a huge privilege for both of us, to
Hmm.
9. So you
Wow.
never know how many are going to be in the group any one day. But when they do come, there is like a little ritual I've developed. Have you ever heard of those singing bowls that make a gong when you hit them?
Yes, yes.
Well, it's a beautiful kind of spiritual, but not denominational way to begin. And so we begin with the gong and just take a little silence to breathe, relax, take some kind of insight inventory. And then what I do is I offer them one of these little wisdom cards. You can buy them anywhere, but they say little encouraging things like relax, I've got it, signed guard, or something like that.
Yes, yeah.
And then we do a little checking in, and I'll tell you, the variety or range of articulateness is huge. Some people are not very verbal. Some people would love to just talk and keep on talking.
Hmm.
And so you do the checking in with some kind of gate for making sure everybody gets to talk. And then I love to give them different, what should I say, different offerings. Some are things like what you would do not to be codependent. That's a big deal,
Sure.
big thing for
Hmm.
women especially. And give them a list of ways that you can measure that and make a different choice. There are sometimes I give them beautiful quotes from spiritual people and ask them to pick one. It's always a pick one whenever I give them a list, so that they have a chance to see how different they are from one another, and if they have the same question or issue, to check in with one another about why this is so important to them.
Hmm.
So after that, then we often have a discussion that could not be predicted ahead of time. And just the other day, we, in my companion, which I'll tell you a bit about in a minute, decided that probably it'd be a wonderful idea to also have some music, so that if they know the song, they could sing along, or if they don't, it'd be a reflective thing. But I'm so blessed right now because I have 5 different times when I have to be away for a retreat. I just hated that it would be spotty, because once you get this going, like we've been kind of off because of the COVID, and now
Sure.
it's going, and I just hate for us not to be there for a week. So I asked our beautiful directress of the seminary if we could possibly spare a seminary sister. And she responded with the most wonderful partner. I'll say her name because I don't know if anybody will recognize her, but I think they will. Sister Bella DeVilla.
Oh, yes. Actually, we've Bella has been on the podcast
Oh,
twice.
good.
So
Well,
we
there you
spoke,
go.
we spoke with Sister Bella when she was, I believe, a pre-postulant, when she was working with the L'Arche
Yes,
community, and then
yes.
again right before she went into the seminary. So yes, our listeners
Okay.
do know Sister Bella, and what a
Yeah.
wonderful companion she must be to you. I can only
Oh,
imagine. That's
we've
great. What a
just,
great experience for her. My
oh,
goodness.
amen. We've only had 2 meetings so far with a group, but she has been so empathetic and astute and knows so much more. Like, for example, autism was one of the issues in our recent meeting, and she, comes out with this quote that I never would have known. Oh, it's much more prominent in men than it is in women. And and the person who was experiencing autism was so impressed. She said, "Oh, thank you. I'm so glad to know that somebody knows something about this."
Mhm.
And so anyway, but back to Bella will be my stand-in when I have to be out of town. And meanwhile, while we are together as a pair, it's just a wonderful gift to have a partner. And we've just started doing that. So more later, but anyway.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds like it kind of a Tuesday arrives, and you arrive at the center, the women are arriving at the center, and much to, kind of, I guess, a biblical reference that when two or three are gathered, God is there. And so in that experience with yourself and with Sister Bella and the women, through these quotes, through these different reflections,
Mhm.
it sounds like, for those who, as you say, so those who are able either
Mhm.
to articulate verbally or maybe just in their
Mhm.
own being, an experience of maybe some rest and some
Yeah.
peacefulness and some way in which they're able to tap into a side of themselves they probably often have to keep under wraps, because it is a more
Absolutely.
vulnerable side. And when you're already in a physically vulnerable or
Mhm.
economically vulnerable state, it must be difficult for the women to find a space on their own. And so I imagine the gift of this time must be amazing and just life changing for them.
Yes, and scary too.
Oh, yeah,
It's
good
it's
point.
not something that everybody's lining up for because it is a vulnerable spot.
Sure,
But
sure.
once they come and see how easy it is to be accepted and related to and relating with just who you are, it's disarming. And
Sure.
one of the things that I should mention is that recently, this is a big thing. We have been able to add, because of COVID, beds for the women. We have a night program for women.
Okay.
And in yesteryears, like before COVID, these dear souls would pull out a cot. We had, a storeroom for cots. They'd sleep in this huge room where, you can imagine that there would be issues about people who can't sleep, toss and
Mhm.
turn, people who
Sure.
dream and talk in their sleep, coughing, nightmares, etc. And with the we've done some remodeling, and now we have room for 30 people to sleep over, women, I should say. It's just for women.
Just women.
Yeah, who are sleeping in the building. And of course, in the breakfast time, there's cereal and Panera donations and stuff like
Nice.
that. Yeah,
Nice. Yeah.
coffee. And then lunch is served at 11:30 for anybody who come in from the streets. And everyone who is working a healing program is um, more than welcome. Uh, anyway, each client gets to help and gets the help of a social worker. It's not just a place where people can sleep and eat, but everybody who comes to St. Pat's and wants a, a person to help them through whatever trouble they are trying to overcome, they get a social worker, they get a little report card with all the offerings of what they could choose to attend and participate in during the day. And as you can imagine, the more you fill up your report card every week, the more close you get to help for getting a permanent house.
Wow. Yeah. And I would imagine having that kind of record, seeing it, a recording of their accomplishments must be very encouraging. And for many people for whom seeing success has probably been a while ago before they really
Yeah.
at a time when they felt like they were really succeeding at something. It sounds like that St. Pat's is just a very holistic approach to moving people toward housing. I know they kind of use a housing first model, I think.
Yes, they
And
do.
yeah,
Absolutely.
and so what I'm really impressed with as you're speaking is that even though you're saying, there's not people banging down the door, that
Mhm.
the offering of this time of spiritual conversation and journeying with one another in maybe a little bit of a different way really does kind of round off that holistic approach to. It's not just the physical direct service, but it's also economic and
Yes.
housing assistance, and it's also lifting someone's spirits and helping them feel
Yeah.
strength in the inner world of their lives, in the spirit, um, and that goes with them anywhere they go. I mean, it just sounds like such an amazing program and such a great opportunity for the women who who open themselves up to all the pieces that are available.
Absolutely. And both men and women, when they're at St. Pat's and they are connecting with a counselor, they get support in three really important key areas: housing, of course,
Hmm.
employment, and health. And
Okay.
each morning when they start, and this is kind of, this isn't, these choices that I was explaining to you are definitely voluntary, but there's one thing everybody is expected to come to if they are trying to get a home and get employment, etc. And that's the morning meditation. It's led by the person who really helped found this so many years ago. Her name is Ann Rotterman, and she is a mental health expert, and she gives a 45-minute meditation every day. The meditation is the name, but truly, she begins with some breathing and some prayer that is very open to whatever denomination. And then they talk about issues, and it's very interactive. And after that is where the small group choices come from. And this, as I said, there's a report card. So you get to see when you sign in each morning what the person is working on besides the spiritual awakening that I was telling
Sure.
you about.
Yeah. So you also had mentioned to me earlier that this leads to the possibility of a weekend retreat.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
that's
so
really important.
yeah, so again, I think many of us who know other programs for people who are homeless or people who are seeking housing, we know some of the components. Again, the direct service, the social service, the social work pieces of it, and sometimes a Bible study or something like that. But
Mhm.
this I continue to feel is a fairly unique spiritual journey that the women are invited to be part of beyond even the meditation in the morning. And so someone has been attending your Tuesday sessions, and they feel, or you invite them to this weekend retreat, or how does that work? Tell us about
Good
that. It's the
question.
Ignatian Spirituality Program, correct? It's a
Yeah, you're very on target. Um, After a woman has shown some insight into what is going on that she needs to address, and after she's been to a number of the group meetings, the spiritual awakening meetings, and we keep a little record of who's come.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, we see that there are some that really are ready to enjoy and address the weekend retreat. And as you mentioned, it's the Jesuits who have really put their soul into a beautiful experience of 2 days, and then 3 weeks after, a comeback day for people who make the retreat. Here in St. Louis, the women are invited to a beautiful historic mother house, the Sisters of St. Joseph of Carondelet. It's just dirt cheap for us to offer. I mean, the place is gorgeous.
Uh-huh.
It's very old. In fact,
It always helps when things are
right,
inexpensive.
right. But when the women come, they're driven there from St. Patrick's
Mhm.
to this place all the way across town, and they gather with other trained retreat leaders. I'm one of them, but these are offered twice a year, these retreats for the 2-day retreats. And the people who come, the women who are, the number ranges from about maybe 8 to 12.
That's a good number.
It
Yeah.
is, either way, it's a good number. And there are probably about 4 other trained retreat leaders who enable the 2-day experience. It's specifically geared to women experiencing homelessness or addiction issues,
Mhm.
because with addiction comes everything else. But
Sure.
they have to be a little on the way to, in fact, quite a certain amount of awareness on the way before they could absorb what these 2 days are offering. But it's an empowering, I'd say, life-changing experience for many of the women. Now, this happens for the men too, but I'm just sticking with what I'm involved in.
Sure.
It ends with, I say, half joy and hope and half regret and what a bummer that we can't keep going.
Mm.
And of course, some anxiety about, am I going to stay steady in what I've uh, allowed myself to hope for? And that's why we have a comeback reunion day 3 weeks later that gives them a chance to share, how has it gone? How have things changed for them? What challenges have they met up with since the retreat? And you know what, uh, Elizabeth, I also need to mention that I'm not the only one in our province who is doing this. Down in New Orleans, Marcia Tierney and Teresa Daly also participate in these Ignatian retreats for the homeless. And it's a national program. And yet it's especially consoling to me that 3 of us in our province are involved in this wonderful experience.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. When that's exciting and wonderful to know about, that. And I realize in some ways these are, programs that come out of the desire to, especially for women, but as you say,
Mhm.
they include the programs that include men as well. But I think one of the things, as you say that, and I think what's so important for us, as Daughters of Charity, in our outreach to those, not just reaching out in as we talked earlier about the direct service, but to reach out to those so that Christ becomes present in the interaction,
Yes.
and that one of the most important things, it sounds like to me, is that one message, I hope, and I'm wondering if you would agree with me, that one of the messages maybe that it can encourage the women is not just that there's a grounding in the dignity of who they are as human beings, as children of God, whatever denomination, whatever way they think about the divine, but that they're also part of the human community, that nobody does this alone, that
Yes.
that it's okay to need someone else. It's okay when that's done in a healthy and encouraging in a spiritual way. And so, do you feel that what is beginning to be life changing for many women is one, they're learning so much about themselves, but also beginning to learn how to retrust in a world that that has really dashed much of their ability to trust others and their ability to hope for something better. Um, I would imagine these
Oh,
experiences really open that up for them.
oh, Elizabeth, that is so astute that I can tell that you, in a meaningful way, are involved in the very same process. Trust is the basis. Trust in God, trust in self, trust in a network that is supportive. And, as you said, it really all begins with allowing myself to know that I am vulnerable and I need help. This do by self goes just so far.
Hmm.
And we all know that from our own experience. But the willingness to accept help, not only from people, but to depend on the one who most desires our healing. That's a big deal. And the retreat really helps that. It's definitely centered in a religious way. There's no two ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's an invitation for a relationship that is personal and profound with the one who created us in the first place.
Mm. It's beautiful. It just, just in talking with you and realizing the kind of just the development that can happen, but also kind of the breath of the spirit that is in St. Patrick's. I'm sure it's a busy, chaotic,
Yep.
wonderfully active place.
Yep.
But again, to go back to say that sense of the holistic healing, the holistic awakening for people who are moving from extremely vulnerable and economically unsafe. They're insecurely housed. There's so many things that they have to deal with. I would imagine that these experiences can help them, in the sense, clear their minds, that they can
Yes.
begin to tap into that inner resource that that's always there, that soul place, that place that can come alive when we begin to reach within ourselves. And I would imagine that has got to be rewarding. It probably isn't the best word, but for lack of a better one, it's got to be very rewarding for you as you journey with these women and um, see that process, see how God works in their
Oh,
lives. Yeah, is
you
there?
know, it is so rewarding, but as you say, rewarding isn't it? It's so human. It's
Mm,
so assuring.
mhm,
I remember that story of Damien in the leper colony, and when he got leprosy himself, he said one day in his homily, "We lepers," and it was like a way that he was acknowledging, "I'm one with you."
mm.
Well, I'll tell you, that's a perfect example of how I feel every time. It brings me very close to my heart here. Every
Yeah.
time I'm with these women, I am in my own we lepers situation, my vulnerability, my own tendency to codependence, my own need
Mm.
for reassurance. All of that is just meeting with the people that have these same human needs that we all have. There's nothing more leveling than to be with people who tell it like it is.
Yeah. Yeah,
You know what I
absolutely.
mean?
I
Yeah,
do. I do.
yeah,
And I think it, I think it does bring us to that place too, where we begin to realize, we often talk about the other, welcoming the stranger, kind of getting to know people who are not necessarily like us, or we may
yeah,
not feel, but at some level, at some deeper human space, it seems that both, those of you who are journeying with these women, as well as the women themselves, begin to have the experience that the other is us, that we
amen.
we are, one and the same, and that has got to be just an amazing, transformation
It
for
is.
people who are often
Yeah,
treated like, and are told that they are not,
yeah,
always welcome, that they're not always a part of things, but that deep within us, our humanity is what it is,
yes,
and that um, that's got to be just incredible. I can hear it in your cracking
yes,
voice,
yes.
that it touches your heart in very deep ways.
Such a privilege to be in the human race with people that don't have a lot of protections that hide us from our vulnerabilities.
Hmm.
And it's a perfect opportunity for me to take a giant step in not hiding my vulnerability. It's We are all in the same boat, I guess
Hmm.
I'd say, in simple language.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I want a special shout out uh, to the Ignatian Spirituality Program during this COVID year. Even though it was a terrible, St. Patrick's had to shut down, as I'm sure
Sure.
you probably know from your own experience.
Hmm.
Um, but the Chicago-based Jesuit team worked very hard to create an app. It's a free app, and all of the people who are homeless throughout the United States are invited to use it, or if you are working with people who are homeless. It can be downloaded free from anybody who, or for anybody who wants to connect and share experiences of reflection or prayer. And now recently they've just it used to be just an iPhone app,
Hmm.
but now it's become a laptop computer app also. So this terrible block that we experienced during the COVID time to meeting in person has initiated a lot of, uh, I'd say, ingenuity and blessing
Yes.
that
Yeah.
allows more homeless and housing insecure people to gather for shared reflection and prayer. I've always felt a close connection, you probably too, uh, Elizabeth, in the charism between Vincent, Louise, and Ignatius. Um, all three of them, and of course the people who have come after them, have deepened my sense of the connection we all have as human beings.
Yes. Yeah.
It's deepened my conviction that the path forward for homeless men and women is communal.
Hmm.
It's support that's grounded in encouraging their sense of their own dignity. Uh, you know, when you're on the streets for a while, dignity seems pretty far fetched,
Yes. It's
and
one of the first things, the
yeah,
first sense of self that goes, really.
exactly.
Yeah.
And along with it, there's all those other temptations for drugs and codependency.
Hmm.
Who will I sleep with tonight? And that that way of coming home to my own dignity, vulnerable as I am, is truly the gift, I think, that the Jesuits have offered us in this spirituality program for homeless men and women. I I am so privileged and grateful to be drawn into this. You know, when I came to St. Louis, I knew I wanted to work with the homeless, and that was one of the draws that it was one of our sisters who I said, well, I make salad down in a place.
Yeah.
Maybe you'd be interested in that. And I'm not a good cook, but I just, you know, the more I listened to it, I thought I got to go look at this place. And immediately I was drawn. At first I worked with men, but men they're, first of all, they're much more, there are a lot more of them who are homeless.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
it may not be true in numbers, but it is in showing up. You know, there's a pool table up on this whole second floor that I'm talking about is donated or dedicated, I should say, to the people who come to Shamrock for some kind of healing and growth. And there's you know, a place to eat, a place to play pool, a place to just watch TV, a place for just closing your eyes in a soft sofa chair. So the way that it happens is so simple. You meet up with people, and we have to do a lot of what I would call inviting. And Bella's a wonderful inviter too. Whenever we come in, we just kind of look around, see who's not asleep, who's not playing pool, and who might possibly just want to start a conversation that we could draw from into that group. You have to kind of be an evangelist.
Yes. Yes. I know.
You do. I know
Yeah.
you do.
Working with homeless men and women is an incredible gift, and it certainly brings out, I think, in those of us who want to be with them, we feel drawn to spending our days, with folks who are struggling in this way, but to find the humanity
Yeah.
in each of them, and to make that engagement and to learn so much about them is it's just amazing. It's just
Yeah.
really amazing. As you said earlier, the humanity of it all,
Yeah. Yeah.
So Sister Honora, we've talked about some pretty organizational things,
Mhm.
people who are coming and going, an organization that reaches out to people who are struggling. We've talked about some very deep issues about human dignity and the rights of people to safety and their desire to be part of something maybe greater than themselves, that sense of community. All of those things remind us that we and those we serve, we're complete human beings, all struggling and all feeling and experiencing in many ways
Yes.
the same things,
Yeah.
in different ways, but in some ways the same. So I wonder if you
Yeah.
could just maybe, as we end our conversation, tell me a little bit about what it feels like for you, in a sense of belonging. What
Ah,
in belonging within this community? And I know that's, something we often talk about as daughters. We talk about our first place of belonging within the
yes.
community. And so I wonder what that feels like in a place where you do discover your humanity while
Yeah.
journeying with those who are also opening up to their own vulnerabilities, um, and then,
Ah,
maybe just share with us some way that we can, through prayer, through our own meditation, join you in that sense. How can we, in our ways, separate from you, but in the spirit, begin to belong and be part of your support team and the support for your work there?
oh gosh, that's a wonderful, wonderful question. And it probably takes a whole nother
It
a
would, I'm
whole nother,
sure.
but thank you. You know, we do say that community is our primary place of belonging. And the question or the invitation you've posed is a challenging one for me. One of the things that I do believe, even though I've never named this, is that this ground level, we're all the same. that I experience in St. Patrick's clearly has had an impact on my acceptance of myself and of my companions, as different as we are. You know, I look, that's another question, but different as we are all vulnerable, all wanting to be loved, all needing acceptance and affirmation. And when I meet that, with the blinders removed, with the ground level revelation of this at St. Pat's, I think it's so much easier for me to realize this is going on in another level, another dimension, right here in our community. And we are all called to accept our own poverties.
Yeah, it's a beautiful way to end, that we're all called to accept our own poverties, that when we spend time talking about ministry, talking about our apostolate, talking about the ways in which we're out serving those who are poor, our charism to be of service to those who are poor, that we have to recognize, as I said before, that we are the other. We tap
Yes,
into our own poverty in order to be authentic in our
yes,
service. And I've heard that in everything that you've said today,
yes,
that I'm sure that the women that you spend your Tuesdays with feel your authentic heart and
absolutely.
spirit,
Yeah.
and that helps them to trust and open up to you as well. So, Sister Honora, I can't tell you how much I appreciated our conversation today, and
Well,
just
likewise.
hearing about your ministry at St. Patrick's Center. We will pray for you. All of the listeners here will continue to keep you in prayer, and maybe sometime we could come back and have some of those deeper conversations about.
Oh, at least in person, Elizabeth. At least in person.
Absolutely, absolutely. So
Thank you
thank
for
you
your
so
trust.
much, sister. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
It was a joy and a privilege to be with you, Elizabeth. Thank you.